Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coffee with Cory. I'm your host, Cory Smith, here to discuss some NC State men's soccer. Sorry, the coffee is absolutely necessary this morning. Late night last night, but, obviously for NC State, wasn't as worth it. You end up coming away with the loss, but I have to say the environment inside of the Wake Med Soccer Park in Cary. I know there's other sponsorships, but I still call it Wake Med Soccer Park. Was unbelievable last night. NC State fans are just incredible. Like, there's no other way to say it. I mean, it was a men's soccer match. NC State has a chance to, play for a national championship. And obviously, for those types of moments, I think back to, ACC tournaments in baseball. I think back to, the fact that you go to the ACC championship game a few years back on the men's side of things. Obviously, on the women's side of things, like every single time they have a chance to play for it, it's, if NC State is involved, NC State fans show out to be there for those big moments. And, oftentimes they're left frustrated. Every once in a while you get the payoff. Obviously, people that showed up on Friday to watch that match and see NC State try to get to the national championship game was unbelievable. But last night, I think back to that second goal NC State scored, Tay Healy, 84th minute, the last chance to try to get something going. And I mean, we're up in the press box. Thankfully, we were a little warm, but was just you could feel literally the press box shake from that moment, and NC State fans just feeling like, all right, we're back in this thing. For it to end the way that it did was obviously heartbreaking for this program, because you did everything you could to get back in it. And Washington just flat out was the better team. I mean, NC State had some defensive breakdowns, and obviously, people are going to argue whether or not, there was offsides on the last play. Didn't look like it really affected anything as far as the shot was concerned. So I'm good with saying either way. I don't think it was, if it was called that way on the field, but instead they're just reviewing it for that. If it was called that way on the field and then they went back and changed it, I could see frustration for Washington fans, but that just wasn't, that wasn't the case for NC State last night. But again, an amazing season for NC State overall. Incredible season for the defensive side of the ball for NC State. Obviously, with Donovan Phillip. Well, messed that up. Perfect. Feels exactly like what you needed there in that moment. Needed to break something up there. But, Donovan Phillip gets his 19th goal last night. That leads all NCAA men's soccer players on the entire season. He was in a tie going into that one at 18 with a player from Grand Canyon, but ends up breaking it. Tay Healy finishes his NC State career with 4 goals in the last 4 games that he played. Obviously, Tay, if you haven't kept up with his story, a guy that came over from New Hampshire along with Marc Hubbard and, helped to change the program, helped to be, a midfielder that not only navigated things for NC State in the open field on the offensive side of the ball, but also was a guy that, scored a ton of goals and scored goals in big moments, had assists in big moments for NC State to get them to this point. Obviously, Donovan Phillip, regarded as one of the best soccer players in the entire country, and for good reason. But Tay Healy, if you didn't notice the impact that he's had this season, you definitely did when it came to the actual NCAA tournament. Another guy I wanted to point out here too, and a guy that has a chance to return next year, Nikola Markovic, and obviously Logan Erb, a guy that his career is over, Logan Erb, but Nikola Markovic has a chance to come back next season as a sophomore. He has 2 years remaining. Donovan Phillip, another guy that has a chance to come back, and it didn't sound like he shut the door on his NC State career by any means when he was talking last night at the podium. So definitely a chance for them to kind of keep somewhat of the band together. Obviously, you're going to lose some key pieces just because of the fact that they have no eligibility remaining. But this team, what they're able to put together, I mean, I kind of tried to summarize it last night by the fact that, it's a tough loss, but State broke through several barriers that hadn't been reached since the 1990s with back-to-back Sweet 16. So obviously, it went to a Sweet 16 last year, but hadn't reached back-to-back Sweet 16s in 3 decades. Made it to an Elite Eight, the first College Cup appearance since 1990, and then the first ever national championship game. You finish as the runner-up for the first time ever. You'd like to be able to take home the trophy and say, like, nah, we didn't finish runner-up. We finished, number 1 in the entire country. But it's clear that this program, obviously the pieces are there for this team to make a run and things along those lines. But, like, this is just the beginning for what Marc Hubbard has a chance to build at NC State as long as he's retained for a number of years. And NC State obviously has to do the job there and keep him in Raleigh. But, he talked about it last night. Like, there's frustration right now over the fact that they're a little behind in the transfer portal. But if you're able to keep some of these pieces, you're able to keep a guy like Markovich, and if you're able to find a way to get Donovan Phillip back next year, those are already 2 really key pieces to what led to the success for NC State. Riley Maloney, again, an incredible season for him overall too. He ended up not being able to, ended up having a chance to play in some big moments this year. And we'll see ultimately what he's able to do next year coming back for NC State too, as a freshman, coming back as a sophomore. So, all these different things. And obviously, NC State was missing some pieces in this game, dealt with some injuries, but you don't want to harp on that too much because there were still a ton of players out there that were making an impact. I think, again, the issue in this one for NC State was the speed of Washington. They just, from the very beginning, obviously NC State was able to get possession early on, but every time Washington got the ball, got possessions, they were on the attack. They weren't, they didn't play like they were a team that, had gotten there because of the fact that they had earned it. They played like a team that was the underdog and did that from the very beginning. Like the first goal NC State gives up, Logan Earn plays a little bit well outside of the box, and it leads to an open net. That's frustrating to watch. And then obviously the second one, bit of a defensive breakdown. Markovich has his back turned to the striker, and it ends up leading to an easy opportunity, not something he typically does. So those two plays in general, if you could take one of those 2 back, NC State wins it 2-1. But also NC State was playing with his back against the wall in the second half. So you take all those things into account. It's a little bit difficult to just be like, oh, well, if NC State doesn't have those defensive breakdowns, they end up winning this match because they scored 2 goals in the second half. Well, if they didn't give up a goal at all, maybe they just go for 1 and then try to play possession and not allow a goal. So all those things are different throughout the match. But I just, again, wanted to point out, first of all, kind of what I said earlier, the fact that, this team has put together a remarkable run. And we'll see how many of those pieces they're able to retain this offseason. If you're able to keep a guy like Donovan Phillip, that's a game changer. If you're able to keep Markovich and Maloney and, find some other pieces to go around that, you have a chance to put together an insane season next year and try to compete to get back to Cary and, carry the culture, which is what they've talked about all offseason. And then, the last thing I wanted to point out here too is the fact that, the fan base, it was just, again, incredible to watch. It's one of those things where you're hoping to be able to, have these kinds of breakthrough moments and they show up for these things. And not only did they show up, but they showed out with over 10,000 people in attendance, broke the record for a game played in Cary in the first one with over 10,300. And then the most for a championship game, I believe, was a little over 10,100 on Monday night. And mind you, like in freezing temperatures last night, NC State fans showed out, and you could just feel it. Like from the very beginning, every single time NC State got a possession, every single time NC State got a turnover, it was, that you could feel like the crowd just teeming with excitement, just waiting to have that breakthrough. And like I said, that second goal, you could really feel just how big of an impact the crowd had on this game. The difference was Washington has played every single game on the road throughout this entire NCAA tournament run. They lost their last 3 matches, which led them to being unranked heading into things, led them to having to go on the road to Oregon State, led them to having to go on the road to Stanford, one of the toughest places to play in all of college men's soccer. And then, having to go all the way to Cary to play against a Furman team that had been going through the exact same type of run that they had put together as the number 16 seed. So, all these things have to be taken into account, but Washington just played an unbelievable match and was able to close things out. Again, you're not on the attack for the entire second half. You're just kind of playing back and trying to keep NC State from scoring. So once you get to the overtime period, Washington was the fresher team and immediately attacked once it got to that point. So we'll see what this team is capable of doing, what they're capable of putting together over the next few months leading up to next season. But man, again, just an amazing night for NC State. You'd love to have seen them actually break through, but an amazing run for this program to get to that point. We'll see what they're capable of doing next year, but I just wanted to give one more shout out to this men's team. Wanted to give another shout out, by the way, to the women's soccer team for finding a way to have some resurgence late in the season. We'll see what that leads to next season. Is this becoming a football school along with being trying to get to being a football school as well? We'll have plenty more coverage. Just finished putting up a Deron Rippey junior note. Latest I'm hearing ahead of his commitment on December 30th. We now know that. We'll also have the how to watch for the football game on Friday, the Gasparilla Bowl. We'll be able to talk to the Memphis head coach later today. We'll talk to Dave Doran tomorrow. We'll have all that coverage up on Pack Pride throughout the day. So again, thank you to everybody for listening. We will talk to you again soon.